This is Chad Gray, Administrator of Elections for Williamson County, Tennessee. I am pleased to announce a series of videos as part of a larger program called the Williamson County Election Institute. One of the goals of this program is to inform our voters about the laws and various policies and procedures that surround our efforts to preserve the integrity of the ballot in all of our elections. It is of utmost importance that our voters feel confident when casting their ballot in each and every election. This program has been designed to familiarize our citizens with the various functions of our office in relation to topics such as voter registration, voting machines and equipment, candidate information, early and election day voting, absentee voting by mail, and poll officials and their importance. We hope that you will have a greater understanding and appreciation for the efforts that are made to ensure a fair and impartial election process.
Mr. Chairman, explain the nature of the Williamson County Election Commission and its role in elections in Williamson County in general terms.
Sure, there's 5 commissioners that are appointed by the State Election Commission for a 2-year term, and in fact, the new term just started April 1st. So the State Election Commission gets advice from the legislators in the county in which they're appointing, and then in Williamson County, there's 4 Republican legislators, and they consult and make their recommendations to the state. And since there's no Democrat elected legislatures in the county, they confer with the county Democrat Party. The state statute says that there's 3 members of the commission from the majority party in the state legislature and 2 members from the minority party. So when I first came on the commission in Williamson County in 2004, I was one of 2 Republicans. That flipped in the state in 2010, and now since then we've had 3 Republicans on the commission and 2 Democrats on the commission.
Discuss the process involved with selecting a new voting machine vendor in 2019.
So it's been a very busy time in Williamson County Election Commission office. Our county is growing faster than any other county in the state, so we're adding new registered voters. We've gone to the vote center instead of precincts, which I think has been very well received. And then we have a new voting machine. We went through a process in 2019. Our old system was ES&S system, and if you remember, you'd go in and after you registered and then you went to vote on the machine, you just pressed the button of who you wanted to vote for, and that was it. You walked out. So that worked well, but with new technology, we now have added a step in the process. After you register, you go to a ballot marking device, and that ballot marking device then spits out your ballot that you marked, a paper ballot, and you can look at it. Say, yep, I voted for John Smith, I voted for Mary Jones, that's right, and then you go and either put it in the scanner yourself or you watch one of the employees put it into the scanner. So that gives us a paper ballot backup. And I can speak for myself, I thought that was critical in picking a new voting machine system. The old system didn't do that, didn't give you any backup, and you just trusted that the computers were all there and adding correctly. And I never saw a case where it didn't do a good job. But now I think this gives voters a little more confidence of the security of their ballot and the safety and the fairness of it. So if a judge were to order, if there was a contested election and a judge ordered it, we can actually go and recount all those paper ballots by hand if necessary. Thankfully, in this last election, there was no close election and there was not a contest, and we did not have to do that, but we have that ability now if we need to. So we went through a process. The ES&S system was about 16 years old, and if you think about any computer nowadays, you can't really use software that's 16 years old. And so ES&S was saying they were no longer going to service it. We had to either upgrade to their new systems or we had to pick another one. So we did a RF&P in the county. County helped us do that. And there's basically 5 vendors in the state that the State Election Commission and the Coordinator Elections Office have approved in the state. And those 5 vendors have about 10 systems. So we invited all 5 vendors to come in, do their presentation. And so we went through 5 presentations. But what I wanted, my personal, and I can only speak for me as one of the 5 commissioners, but I really wanted the ballot marking device. And the reason is, the alternative is to go in and just have a paper ballot and maybe fill in the circles like you do in an ACT test perhaps. And what I have found over the years, and particularly we do that system for our absentee ballots, the paper ballots, is that your voter error rate goes way up when you do that. You know, people may fill in 2 circles for a race and they were only supposed to fill in 1. Or they may X out something and write a note on it, you know, and at that, when that happens, you've got to go to an adjudication process. You've got to then have people actually try to make a decision of what voter intent was. We all saw what happened in Florida. We're trying to determine voter intent in 2000, and we don't really want to have to determine voter intent. We want the voters to determine their own intent. So I think, in my opinion, that ballot marking device makes it a cleaner process, because after you vote, you can review your own ballot and determine, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. And if you don't, like if something came out wrong, you can tear it up and do it again. Until you put that ballot in the scanner, you can actually do it as many times as you want. But thankfully, we don't have voters that take that much time, because the lines are typically long, particularly for a November election. So that was my first concern. I wanted that ballot marking device, and then I wanted that paper ballot backup. So those are, we went through the process with the RF&P. We really came down to 2 systems that we really liked that fit those criteria, and that we had done some research on and tested them out. One was ES&S, this vendor we were using before, and the other was Dominion, which was a fairly new system in the state. This particular system had not been used in the state before, the one that we chose. But there was another county, Hamilton County in Chattanooga used Dominion, and we talked to them. We talked to other counties across the nation that used and got feedback from how was their customer service, et cetera. And so we invited also, we narrowed it down to those 2. We invited our staff in, our machine technicians, Chad's group, and we got their opinion as well. And they brought up some interesting things that we were really struggling a little bit with ES&S and their customer service. We weren't particularly happy with some of the things. And so based on that, the commission voted to buy the Dominion system. Now, it was about $1.5 million. About $1 million of that came from the state, and about $500,000 of it came from the county. So we've now used it in 5 elections, including this past one, and that's how that came to be.
If you would, discuss some frequently asked questions regarding Dominion voting systems.
So we're asked, been asked a lot of questions. I've actually spoken to several groups. I'm trying to make myself available, as a lot of people have questions about the election and about Dominion. It's in the news a lot. There's lawsuits flying around concerning Dominion. So we get a lot of questions, and part of my role is to promote the electoral process in the county. And so while I don't get paid for it, I've made myself available to many groups, and would like to do that going forward. But Dominion is a company based in, it's got a headquarters in Canada, Ontario, Canada, and Denver, Colorado. A lot of people ask about somehow a system called Smartmatic, and there were some allegations out there about Smartmatic being connected to Dominion and, I don't know, results or ballots going overseas. But none of that happened in our county for sure, or our state, because Smartmatic is not an approved vendor in the state of Tennessee. So we don't have Smartmatic in this state, we don't have it in this county. So just make sure that people don't confuse those two things. The other thing that concerns people are, there's thoughts that our voting systems may be connected to the internet. And that's just not the case. So we've got, when you think about your voting systems, you've got really two major systems. You got the very first system, which is the registration process. When you go in, you show them your ID. You say you live at XYZ Street, and that's confirmed. And then you've got to sign the registration twice that you are who you say you are. That is a separate system. So that's all connected to our voter registration system. And we have secure intranet that handles that piece, because at the voting locations, you've got to be connected to our county voting system, so we can pull your registration up. One of the reasons you want to do that is once you vote and register, then you're locked out. You can't go to vote in Brentwood and then try to go vote in Fairview and then try to vote in Franklin. That system prohibits you from doing that, and that's why we have to be tied into the main system. That system has nothing to do with counting the votes and the ballots. The ballots, after you do your ballot marking device, you submit it into the scanner. That is all a closed system, and there's no connectivity to any internet or any other computer as far as that goes. Because we physically have our employees take those ballots, and obviously there's computer chips in those scanners. They physically bring them to the Election Commission office, and then we read those. But there's other things that go in as well as backups. If you're at a vote center on election day, let's say, and they close the polls at 7, the officer of the elections actually prints several paper tapes of the results. One of those is taped to the wall or to the door, so that any candidate who wishes can see the results from that particular location, and then they're physically transported to the Election Commission office here in Franklin. So then we have paper tapes of the results. We look at those voting machines, and they have basically they're double locked. There's usually a Republican lock and a Democrat lock, double sealed. They got Republican seals and Democrat seals, and before we open those machines up and look at the results, we have to verify that those seals have not been broken, that the ballots are intact and secure. So there's a lot of safeguards that go in place. And so then those come into the office here. We physically take the thumb drives with the vote results, and we put them into our own computer here at the office. They don't go anywhere else. They don't go on the internet. They don't go anywhere but to our office. And we have an employee whose job it is, that usually on election night, to read those. As those results come in, we print them off and give the printed copy to the media. Usually that's my job on election night. Actually, I go down and hand them out. And then we make those results available to the state as well. And the state has their own secure website that we input those numbers in as they come in regularly on election night. So there's a lot of different safeguards that go into the process. One of the questions that come up is about adjudication. Somehow adjudications become an issue out there. In Williamson County, adjudication arises when there's an issue with the ballot, and this is typically on the absentee ballots. I think I explained earlier that, we have people sometimes spill coffee on their ballot, and we can't read it. So we have to do, basically, if you have an issue with the ballot, it pops up, and we have to have our counting board, which is made up of Republicans and Democrats, usually various teams, and both teams have to agree on what that voter intent is. If they don't agree, it goes to a vote of the counting board. The whole counting board would have to vote if there's any disagreement. I don't believe there was any disagreement in this last election, and it's been very rare to have any kind of disagreement there. So those adjudication in Williamson County, we adjudicated about 1,000 ballots out of the 140,000 ballots that were cast. So it's a process that we do need to implement, and it's a very small number in this county.
Discuss items relative to voting machine and ballot box preparation before an election.
So I alluded to a little bit of this earlier, but the County Election Commission also hires 2 machine technicians. One is hired by the Democrat Party and one's hired by the Republican Party. They work in tandem, they always work together, and they have to prepare the machines ahead of time together. They have to make sure there's no votes on those machines before they go out. So they have to run, they do a lot of testing on them to make sure the machines are working properly. So they do testing for their accuracy and their logic. So every machine that we use is tested by our Republican and Democrat machine technician. And then, so they run the 0 tapes, so we verify there's no votes on those machines. And then, of course, we all have to sign off that, there's 0 votes on those machines. And then we lock them, and then we seal them with seals. And so we record the seal numbers. Those seals, you can't get into those machines to the ballots without breaking those seals. So that's definitely some additional steps that we take to verify the security of the ballot. Then we also have a very similar preparation for our absentee ballots and our paper ballots. The Election Commission members actually put the locks, a Republican lock in and Democrat lock, and there's Republican seals and Democrat seals. And we record all those, and before we open up any of those ballot boxes, we determine that nope, nothing has been tampered with. We actually have one of our Democrat members has the Democrat key to the lock, and one of our Republican members have the Republican key to the lock. So the ballot boxes cannot be tampered with until everyone's in agreement that everything's okay, and then we unlock those and pull, we have to pull out those absentee ballots. Interesting, on election day, we had a record number of votes anyway, but we also had a record number of absentee votes. And so we had about 30 people in our counting board, half Democrats, half Republicans, that worked in teams. And so one of the first objectives of that absentee counting board is to verify the number of ballots that they have is equal to the number that we have in our system that had registered. So we do that in various places. So like on election day, at a particular vote center, you know that maybe 1,221 people registered to vote. Well, you better have 1,221 ballots cast. Occasionally there can be a discrepancy. Let's say someone came in and registered, got an emergency phone call, and had to leave before they could vote. Well, our officer of election has to make notation of that and still has to reconcile those two numbers if they leave without casting a ballot. Very, very rare for that to happen. So we do that actually in early voting every day. At every early vote site, you have to reconcile your registered voters with the ballots cast. Now, we don't know the outcome of those ballots. Those can't be counted until after election day is over. But the actual reconciliation goes on at the precinct, at the vote centers. We do it for all the absentee votes, and so we do it also for all the early votes. So basically, we know how many ballots we're supposed to have. So there's no case where we're going to miss counting, ballots, because we're trying to reconcile down to the very ballot. And let me give you an example of that. So this time on election, absentee counting board on election day, we divided our teams into the 12 districts, and we split all the absentee ballots into the 12 districts. And they could not start opening up those and pull those ballots out until those numbers reconciled. Well, we had one district where we were one off. So we got the alphabetized list of those absentee ballots. We alphabetized our absentee votes in that district and went through them one by one to find out where we were off. Turned out the reason we were off was someone requested an absentee ballot but ended up voting in person. And we did not take them off our computer list. So we actually had the correct number. But so we go to that level of detail before we start counting those absentee ballots.
Discuss what occurs with absentee ballot and early voting tabulation with the absentee counting board.
So the counting board's appointed depending on how many absentee ballots we have. Small elections, if it's under 100, excuse me, the election commission members themselves can be the absentee counting board. Over 100, we actually have to call in a team, and they usually start, they can't start doing anything until about 7 a.m. when the polls open on election day. And so the election commissioners come in, they have to, each one has to unlock their lock. The Republican has to unlock their Republican lock, and the Democrat commissioner has to unlock the Democrat box. We verify that none of the seals have been broken, and once that's done, we pull all of those ballots out of those ballot boxes that have come in. So we use a ballot scanner. So we have a pretty, if you can imagine, trying to count 13,000 or so ballots by hand would be a very difficult process. So we actually put those into a scanner, and the high-speed scanner counts those ballots. Now, so we're kind of working on election day on those absentee ballots. We're also start the process of closing all the machines that came in for early voting, and then we can't release those results or tabulate them on final numbers until 7 p.m. when the polls close. So no one has any vote totals until 7 p.m. And hopefully, as soon after 7 p.m., we can get those tabulated and printed to the media. And we usually do a pretty good job of getting them relatively close to 7 as we can. Then as the polls close in the outlying vote centers, it usually takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on if there are people in line, what are the closing processes at each one of those. And so as they bring those numbers in, we add those to the absentee ballot and the early vote numbers and continue to present those to the media as we have the numbers. Yeah, so we did a review of the 2020 results in Williamson County, and I wanted to compare those results to how other counties did use a different voting system than we did. So I looked at several counties that I thought were somewhat similar in demographics to Williamson County. We looked at Bradley County, Knox County, Sumner County, and Wilson County. And those 4 counties have 3 different vote systems that are not what our vote system is. They use Microvote Infinity, the Heart Verity scan system, and ES&S Express Vote. So I checked, I wanted to look at the 2016 numbers and their 2020 numbers. And I know the demographics are somewhat shifting, and population shifting, so it's not a pure test, but it's a good rule of thumb type test. And it's very interesting that the trends for each of those counties, including Williamson County, from 2016 to 2020, were all the same within like 1% delta. So that gave me some comfort in looking at reviewing our Williamson County results.
You've been on the Williamson County Election Commission for many years now. Is it getting harder?
Well, it's interesting. I would say yes, in that our county's getting bigger. So we're the 6th largest county in the state, and we're the fastest growing county. We're behind Rutherford and Hamilton, but we're quickly approaching, we're almost on par with Rutherford County in the number of voters and the votes that are, the number of votes we count. And we're approaching Hamilton County as well. I don't know with the projected growth rates exactly when we'll surpass those counties, but I don't think it'll be too long. So one of the good news about Williamson County is in 3 of the 4 last federal elections, Williamson's been #1 in the state in voter turnout. And I think part of that is due to, we've made a very strong push in the county for early voting. And I think that has paid off in our voter turnout. I also think the vote center concept has increased our voter turnout, because now you can go vote at any location in the county, not just your one precinct. So that if you work, say, in Brentwood, and you get off, at 6:30 in the evening and you rush over to the Brentwood location, in the past, if you lived in Fairview, they would say, no, you got to go to your Fairview location. And that person probably didn't get the vote. Now they can vote in Brentwood, they can vote in Fairview, you can vote at any of your vote centers, which is a new technology that we've implemented. I think there's 3 other counties in the state that are using vote centers. And I think that it's been very popular in Rutherford County and in Wilson County, and I think Monroe County in East Tennessee use it as well. But I think that's helped our voter turnout, and I think it's been very well received by many of the people in the county.
You said it, Williamson County is growing rapidly. Pardon my English, but you ain't seen nothing yet. We appreciate the form of communication the Williamson County Election Commission has chosen to take to deal with information about its voting systems.
Well,
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we're hoping to do more of this, to be more transparent and open. Hopefully, as the COVID numbers go down, maybe we can have some in-person meetings with voters that are interested. We're certainly open to that. I know maybe we can do that this summer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.